Hi, I am Augustin Hadelich. I am a violinist, a German-American violinist, and I am thrilled to be back in Seoul to perform at the Seoul Phil this week. The Britten Violin Concerto is one of my favorite pieces to perform, and it's a wonderful, very, very interesting piece. What's crazy is that I did not know this piece growing up, and it really was almost never performed until maybe about 20 years ago. Suddenly it became very popular, and many violinists in my generation now have it in their repertoire. Not everybody plays it, but a lot of people learned it. But for the first 70 years almost that it was written, very few violinists learned this piece, which had a lot of reasons, but one of them was that it's a very, very difficult piece, probably one of the most difficult of the 20th century, and just not many people could play it initially, and it was such a daunting challenge, and just somehow it didn't quite have its moment. Suddenly, I think about 20 years ago, a few violinists learned this piece and made it much more well known, and I was right away just blown away when I heard it and knew that I had to learn this piece. And so now, for the past 10 years maybe, it's been in my repertoire almost every season, and I've also played it with Maestro Jaap van Zweden before, with the New York Philharmonic some years ago. It was before the pandemic still. Benjamin Britten is a composer who always, in a way, writes in a vocal, lyrical way, even when he's writing for violin. And this is true for this piece also, that the violin is often has these beautiful singing themes. So everything is very heartfelt and extremely emotional and passionate, and I think it's really sort of speaks to the listener right away. And there's a lot of sadness and suffering in this piece. Benjamin Britten was very passionate about pacifism, and he was extremely just shaken by what happened in Spain in the 1930s, the Spanish Civil War, and the anguish of this war kind of is reflected a little bit in this piece. In a certain way, the Britten Concerto could be understood as Britain's reaction to the Spanish Civil War, and maybe even depiction of it, sort of that it starts with the peaceful, idyllic scenery before the war, and then this militaristic motif starts intruding in the first movement and starts getting closer and closer. In the second movement, it's the war, all the crazy violence of the war, and in the cadenza, all the themes come together in a very anguished way. And the last movement is a passacaglia, which is it's a very dramatic way to end a major work. And this passacaglia, in a way, is him trying to come to terms with what happened. And through the course of these variations, it goes from being just from despair to maybe more hopeful. But in the end, it's very heartbreaking that even though there seems to be some hope, but I end on a trill which is between major and minor. So it's in a way even less satisfying than a minor ending, which has some finality. But this in a certain way feels like it's not answered, because he can't find anything good about war to somehow, he can't see anything positive in it. And so it ends on this, it's a very overwhelming ending. The first times that I performed it, I felt like it was hard to speak afterwards. It was just so emotionally intense. It's still a very powerful journey every time I perform this piece, even though I've played it many times now, that it's really takes you on this emotionally very overwhelming journey. So Britten was actually quite young when he wrote this piece. I think he was 23 years old. So it's amazing for a young composer to write something that has so much depth, so many layers, that I feel like this piece, even you can play it many times and still discover more. There's really a lot of depth in the piece. I think he was, in his sort of youthful ambition, he really wanted to use the violin to its utmost potential. Like he wanted to do everything you can on a violin. And so maybe a little bit too much sometimes. That the technical, the advanced techniques that you have to do are really, really extreme. It has everything from double stops to complicated harmonics, double stop harmonic, and plucking while bowing notes, and just he really wanted to have everything in there. This is part of the reason why for many years, violinists kind of tried to stay away from this piece, because it is just so, there are moments that are so incredibly difficult. You have to have not only your preparation and the solutions you found and your technique, but you also need to maybe have sometimes luck on your side as well when you perform this. And it's amazing now that many violinists play it. It's a wonderful thing for this piece, because people have found different solutions for these moments that used to be considered to be, like unplayable. And of course they're not. Nothing is, usually things that people say are unplayable are not unplayable. They're just very, very difficult. So in that way, sometimes it just takes a lot of violinists trying to, each in their own way, to solve these issues, and then it turns out, no, it's not actually unplayable, and many students learn it, and it's actually now not an unplayable piece anymore. Yes, I've played with Jaap van Zweden for the past 12 years with different orchestras, so many times, but it's our first time to meet here at the Soulphil. So that's exciting, but I'm also just happy to return to the orchestra. I have really good memories here. I think my first time was 2017, if I remember correctly, and then I also came for 2 weeks in 2022 for a kind of residency, and that was a very musically very satisfying, very meaningful experience to be here for 2 programs as well as a chamber program. So I got to know some of the players, and I recognize many faces, and it's and no longer sort of strangers, but seeing friends again. And so that's another reason why I'm happy. I'm so happy to be back here in Seoul, and can't wait for the concert. And I hope that you join me on Thursday at 롯데콘서트홀 and on Friday at Seoul Arts Center for these performances with the Seoul Philharmonic.